Welcome to the Cine Centre in Killarney this evening, where we launch My Radio Memory, Listening to the Listener. Radio in South Africa is just over 100 years old. It's a particularly important medium in a country where between 75 and 90% of people use radio as a source of news, education, entertainment, and as points of connection with fellow South Africans and the outside world, as other forms of communication often cost too much to access. It is still worth remembering the intimacy of a presenter potentially sitting hundreds of kilometers away from you, but entering your home or your car or accessing you on a taxi while you travel home and drawing you into the conversation, the laughter, sometimes the tears, but always talking directly to you, as intimately as if you were both sitting in a room together, conversing one-on-one. Now, throughout this time, the listener has been shaped by this medium. And that is why we celebrate the significance of listening to the listener through this publication, in which a range of personalities have told their personal stories about what radio has meant to them over the years. Robin Sewlal has spent years examining the place of radio in the lives of South Africans, mining these stories and curating them into the book we hold in our hands today. I'm going to now hand over to a gentleman whose name has been synonymous with radio and music production for decades, the respected Mr. David Gresham, who supported the artistry of musicians in this country for so long. David has also written the foreword to My Radio Memory, and I'd like to invite him to kick off our celebration this evening.
I'm not sure what this funny thing is. Good evening, everyone. My career is really music-bound. Radio, believe it or not, was a means for me to get into music. I was a music fiend, and I couldn't find a way of getting what I really wanted. And so I joined a production house called Henry Merrill Radio Productions, where we were producing programs like, I wonder if you remember No Place to Hide, Address Unknown. It was Afrikaans programs for Berda Lifter. And I was one of the sound engineers working with Peter Lotus. Mark Saxon was the main character of No Place to Hide. And believe it or not, all that weird music that you heard in the later years, I had composed because they asked for something strange. So they said, go to Gresham, he's strange enough to do it. So that was part of my career at the beginning. And then I was auditioning for a radio station called LM Radio, which was not successful for about 3 years. But with June Seymour, who was one of our actresses, main actresses, and the late Rob Vickers, I had an opportunity to audition 3 or 4 times, and David Davies, who was the head of the station, decided to take a risk with me and move me down to what was then Lorenzo Marx, Mozambique. And I had the manic pleasure of meeting the late Darryl Yerster, and unfortunately my very good friend John Burks, who had passed away, I think about 2 years ago. Then I was back at Springbok Radio 2.5 years later with the 4:30 special for Teal, because I had joined the record company. And they had changed the program, Springbok changed the program from the 5:30 special, to the 4:30 special. And then they decided to give me 2.5 hours for the David Gresham show from 4 to 6:30. And my news readers were Dennis Smith and Neville Dawson. Eric Cordell worked with us. Radio people moved to Johannesburg, and we started broadcasting what was, I can't remember the year, but it became Radio 5, 1975. 75 was the year we started test transmissions. Springbok Radio's main show after 76 Pop Shop, and Springbok closed down in 85, at the end of 85. And then from there, I really wanted to compose music, and I had written songs that no one really liked, so I produced a young football player called Sean Rennie, that. In between that, in '69, I had a massive opportunity of interviewing John Lennon in London because of the remark he made that the Beatles were stronger than religion and that Christ, and Springbok Radio automatically had outright banned anything that was Lennon, McCartney, the Beatles, no matter orchestral, vocal, and it was really serious. So I did get the interview the same year with Morris Gibb, Barry Gibb, Lulu, who was married to Morris of the Bee Gees, and they became part of my lives, and the Bee Gees became super famous. Olivia Newton-John, who I had worked with in London, and asked me if it was safe to come to South Africa because we were then in the throes of the craziness of apartheid, and I said I believed she could come and she would be safe if she wanted to perform here.
All of this is driven by your love for the medium of radio, which is so evident in this book. So let's hear from you next, Robin.
I did say sometime or the other, or in my communication with you directly, either on WhatsApp or what have you, you're all special guests here this evening. And I was going to say, good evening. You and I keeping each other company for the next 3 hours. And I was going to say, oops, this is not radio. The magical and charming medium, I may add. I'm truly and wonderfully humbled by your presence, your attendance. Malcolm, I won't forget when you called me about 2-3 months ago, and we were having a conversation about the radio industry, and you kept interrupting me and saying to me, but Robin, do you realize what you're doing for the radio industry? And I kept interrupting you when you said that, because I was quite sort of taken aback by what you were saying to me. I was hoping Stan Katz would have been here, the gentleman that pioneered talk radio in this country, and he said almost the same thing to me. So yeah, great to have you, great to have friends here. You all are my friends, you all are special, and really nice to have you along.